I'm going to talk on a topic, it's another DUI topic, but tell you folks that insist on drinking and driving or riding. The police are out there Friday or Saturday night, or actually all the time, but what are they looking for? I have to read from this list because it's exhaustive. This is the 24 NHTSA, which is the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, DUI detection cues, nighttime cues that police officers are looking for when you're driving. One is weaving, that's pretty obvious. Weaving across lane lines, that's pretty obvious. Straddling a lane line, obvious again. Swerving, but here's one where I can walk outside and sit here on a corner and watch that 9 out of 10 people will make a wide right turn or a wide left turn. In other words, you were taught a long time ago when you took your driving test, when you make a right turn, you pull into the lane closest to you. When you make a left turn across an intersection, you pull into the lane still closest to you, going in the direction to your left. When you make the wide turn, in other words, you don't get in the lane closest to you, you will get pulled over at night. But during the day, I don't think I've ever heard from a client or otherwise, anybody that's ever been pulled over during the day for doing that. That is probably the most significant, most repeated offense I see in police reports for the reason of a stop of a DUI suspected driver in this valley. Drifting, that's swerving. Almost striking an object, that's pretty self-explanatory. Stopping problems. The first thing that gets affected when you drink, believe it or not, is your hearing. The next thing is your judgment. So when a light turns red and you're approaching it, it doesn't register. It's a delayed registration, if you will, of your brain seeing it, and then you hit the brakes late. That's a NHTSA nighttime driving cue. Or hitting them so late you can't stop except maybe halfway into the crosswalk, past the stop lane. That's another clue. Varying speed. In other words, you're accelerating, decelerating. Believe it or not, speeding is not one of the cues, but going slow is. In other words, being too careful. Going under the speed limit. Driving in opposing lanes or wrong way on a one-way street, well, no kidding. Slow response to traffic signals, what I just told you. Slow or a failure to respond to a police officer's emergency lights. I see this as a big cue. Now, there's already a reason for a stop, the police officer's determined. He turns on his lights, and you simply, it doesn't register, or you're not looking in your mirrors. You don't know what's going on around you. Your lack of situational awareness. Because the next thing that goes besides your judgment is you start getting tunnel vision. And the more impaired you get, the more your vision gets narrower and narrower and narrower, tunnel-like. Following too closely. That's another big one that I see a lot of stops for that reason alone. An improper and unsafe lane change. And that could be as simple as darting behind somebody, changing lanes abruptly, not using your turn signal. A fast or a jerky turn, in other words, a last minute turn. Again, going back to, oh my God, I need to turn right here, and you do it at the last possible moment, presumably a little bit too fast, but it's noticeable. Inappropriate or unusual behavior, which I've had plenty of situations where passengers have been disruptive in a car, the driver's trying to deal with it, and a police officer notices it because there's some herky-jerky action going on with the vehicle. So he makes a stop, usually a check welfare stop if he sees people arguing or he can somehow tell that. Appearing to be impaired, I got a problem with that one. And I did have this happen 25 years ago. A police officer pulled up next to a client, and the client rolled down his window and said, "Officer, do you know where so-and-so business is?" The police officer told him, "Sure, it's up there to the right." The police officer articulated that the client appeared to be drunk, and the court later on ruled it was a bad stop. Somebody's facial expressions in and of themselves is not enough to stop someone. Now, everybody in Arizona has tinted windows in their car, which makes it even harder to see in the car at night. But if an officer articulates he appeared to be impaired, and that's just a visual of the driver, that's not enough probable cause or reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed to stop somebody and then start working on your probable cause. that I would consider a bad stop, and I think most courts would as well too. So keep in mind that the biggest things are and throw that phone aside. If you're in a car and you've been drinking, take that phone, turn it off, stick it in the back seat. Don't be looking at it, because if you're sitting there looking at your phone and trying to drive and you've had a couple of drinks, you're not going to drive well. You're not going to be able to stay in the lane that you're supposed to be driving in, which you can't anyhow if you're texting or looking at a telephone. But man, if you've been drinking, take that phone and get rid of it so it's not within arm's reach. That way you won't be tempted into grabbing it. Have your hands at 10 and 2 o'clock and focus. Focus on what you're doing. You make that left turn, you pull into that lane closest to you. You make that right turn, you do the same thing. You anticipate that light changing. Try, and I'm not advocating drinking and driving, folks, especially if you're impaired, but if you find yourself in that situation, now you know the reasons for stops and what police officers are looking for. The best way to do it, especially now with the advent of Uber and Lyft, is if you've been drinking, have a great time, leave the car parked, and just call Uber, Lyft, a cab, a friend, whoever, and play it safe. It's a hell of a lot cheaper doing that. You don't risk your job, your livelihood, a whole bunch of money, incarceration time, and being labeled a criminal. That's the best way to go. Thank you.
If you have any questions or ideas for these video topics, please email me at lawyer@chuckfranklin.com. That's lawyer@chuckfranklin.com. And I'll consider your topic, and maybe you'll see yourself on my video channel. Thank you.